The eviction notice was fluorescent orange, laminated, and zip-tied to the CEO's door like a neon middle finger. I stood there at 8:15 a.m. on what would become the most satisfying Tuesday of my 58-year life, watching Brady Stevens from HR try to peel it off with his manicured fingernails while his oat milk latte went cold. Notice to vacate property, breach of lease terms, 72 hours. His hands were shaking like he'd mainlined espresso. The marketing team started rubbernecking from their Herman Miller chairs that cost more than my truck. Someone whispered, "Is this real?" Oh, it was real. Real as the 21 years I'd spent keeping this building breathing while they built their tech empire on top of my back. Real as the severance letter they'd handed me 3 weeks ago with my name spelled wrong. Real as the lease agreement sitting in my garage with my signature on every page. My name is Michael O'Brien, Mick to anyone who's ever worked alongside me, which used to be just about everyone at TechFlow Solutions. 3 weeks ago, I was their chief building engineer. Today, I was their landlord, and their worst nightmare. Let me back up to where this really started. July 15th, 2023. A Tuesday that began like every other Tuesday for the past 21 years. Me unlocking the building at 6:47 a.m., 23 minutes before anyone else, with the original brass key they gave me back in 2002 when this place was above a Thai restaurant and we couldn't afford real office furniture. I was flat on my back in a crawl space that smelled like mouse droppings and broken promises, troubleshooting why the CEO's $15,000 climate control system was screaming like a jet engine having a nervous breakdown. Some consultant in 2019 had wired it into the same electrical panel as the server room. Nobody thought to check the amperage load. Nobody but me. But here's the thing about being the guy who fixes everything. You remember everything. Every wire, every breaker, every shortcut some contractor took when we expanded the East Wing in 2014. Every detail of every lease renewal I'd handled since 2002 because nobody else wanted to deal with the paperwork. I had that voltmeter in one hand and a flashlight clenched between my teeth when my phone buzzed. Text message from HR. Quick sync needed today. Conference room B, 2 p.m. That's when my gut went cold. I'd seen enough executives cry into their laptops during layoff meetings to know what quick sync meant. It's corporate speak for "we're about to ruin your day." The cleaning crew had left somebody's takeout container in the break room sink again. Someone from marketing had abandoned sushi in the mini fridge over the weekend, and the kombucha had exploded all over the inside of our $3,000 smart refrigerator. Not technically my job, not in any contract I ever signed, but guess who scraped fermented tea off stainless steel at 7 a.m.? This guy. That's what I was. The invisible infrastructure. The load-bearing wall everyone took for granted until something cracked. I held everything together while they built floors on top of me, and I did it in silence, because that's what my old man taught me. You do the work right, or you don't do it at all, he'd said when he handed me his 1952 Craftsman toolbox at 19. I kept that toolbox in my truck, still had his socket wrenches organized exactly the way he did. That red metal box, dented to hell but solid as a church, had more value to me than any plaque they never gave me or any bonus they never thought to offer. TechFlow Solutions. Sounds impressive, doesn't it? Started in 2002 with 5 employees, 1 fax machine held together with electrical tape, and dreams bigger than their bank account. These days they had 200 employees spread across 12,000 square feet of prime downtown real estate, and a CEO who thought HVAC stood for "have a very acceptable coffee." Richard Rich Ashford couldn't tell a circuit breaker from a cappuccino machine. My business card said Chief Building Engineer, but to him I was just maintenance, the guy who showed up when their precious servers overheated or when someone jammed the industrial printer for the 15th time that month. It got worse when they brought in Brady Stevens as the new HR director 6 months ago. Fresh out of grad school, all teeth and venture capital buzzwords. Kid wore Patagonia vests like armor and talked about cultural fit like he'd invented the concept. Probably thought a union was something you did with onions. Brady had that particular brand of arrogance that comes from never having actually fixed anything in his life. Once asked me where the Ethernet cable went. I told him the same place his performance review was headed if he didn't learn how things actually worked around here. He didn't laugh. I didn't go to fancy business schools, never wore a suit that cost more than a mortgage payment. But I knew that building like I knew my own heartbeat, which pipes moaned before a storm, which thermostat had a nervous breakdown when humidity hit 70%, where the main electrical panel made a sound like an angry rattlesnake if you opened it too fast. I'd kept this company breathing through power surges, pipe bursts, server room floods, and 4 CEOs worth of terrible decisions. 21 years of showing up early, staying late, and making sure the lights stayed on while they chased their IPO dreams. And they just forgot. No recognition, no handwritten thank you notes, no acknowledgement that maybe, just maybe, the guy who knew where every pipe ran and every wire went might be worth keeping around. That meeting invite landed in my inbox at 1:47 p.m. Subject line, HR discussion, Mick O'Brien. No context, no warning, just a calendar event dropped onto my day like a piano falling from a 10th-story window. I showed up wearing my cleanest work shirt and my polished boots. Those boots had walked me through 4 CEOs, 1 office fire, a baby shower that ended in divorce papers, and more crises than I could count. They were my armor, and I had a feeling I was going to need it. Conference room B at 2 p.m. felt like walking into a funeral where I was both the guest of honor and the corpse. Brady Stevens sat there with his HR smile, the kind that says, "This isn't personal," right before it gets very personal. Next to him, some lawyer I'd never seen before. Slicked hair, expensive shoes, and a manila folder he kept stroking like it contained nuclear launch codes. "Mick, thanks for coming," Brady chirped, gesturing to the chair across from them like we were old friends about to discuss my golf handicap. We wanted to have a restructuring conversation. There it was, that word, restructuring. I'd heard it before, held other people's hands through it, covered their shifts afterward. I knew the playbook by heart. First the smile, then the folder, then the apology that isn't really an apology. "We're going in a new direction," Brady continued, adjusting his Patagonia vest. "Modernizing operations, streamlining our facilities management through third-party contractors." I stared at him. Kid couldn't change a light bulb without submitting 3 forms and a safety assessment. That direction wouldn't happen to include me, would it? Silence, the kind that fills a room like poison gas. The lawyer slid his precious folder across the table. Inside, a generic severance package with more fine print than a pharmaceutical commercial. 3 months' pay, NDA clause, health insurance until end of quarter, real generous for 21 years of service. But here's the kicker. The letter didn't even get my name right. Michael J. O'Brien. 21 years of keeping their lights on, and they couldn't spell the name that was on every lease renewal, every insurance policy, every utility account that kept this place running. "We're requesting your badge and keys today," the lawyer added in that monotone voice lawyers perfect in school. "Also any company property in your possession." I took a breath deep enough to crack concrete. Reached into my bag like I was moving underwater. Set the badge on the table first, that little plastic rectangle with my photo from 2018 when I still believed loyalty was a two-way street. Then came the keys. All 14 of them, hanging on the steel ring I'd carried for 21 years. Each one labeled in my handwriting. Master key, electrical room, server closet, roof access. Every lock I'd rekeyed myself back in 2004 when our security system was held together with hope and electrical tape. I dangled that key ring like a hypnotist's watch. "You sure about this?" Brady blinked. "I'm sorry. You sure you want these?" I held up the keys, letting them catch the fluorescent light. "Last chance to think it through, kid." His face went through about 6 different expressions before settling on HR professional concern number 3. "It's not personal, Mick. It's just business." "Sure it isn't." I stood up, buttoned my work shirt with the company logo I'd worn since 2004, and picked up that sad excuse for a severance package. "You just fired the only person in this building who knows where the main water shutoff is. Good luck with that." I walked out before I could say something that would feel good for 10 seconds and cost me the next 10 years. The hallway felt like a movie set after the cameras stopped rolling. Empty. Artificial. I passed the break room where I'd cleaned up 1,000 messes that weren't technically my job. Walked by the server room where I'd spent countless nights keeping their precious data from melting. Every step echoed like a countdown. Outside, the July heat hit me like a slap from reality. The sidewalk buzzed with people heading to jobs where they were probably appreciated, or at least where their bosses knew how to spell their names. I stood there for a minute, watching the city move around me like I was invisible. which I realized was exactly how they'd seen me all along. I didn't drive straight home. Instead, I pulled into a coffee shop parking lot and sat in my truck with the engine off. That's when I called Patrick Murphy, Pat to everyone who knew him before he became a real estate attorney with a Bluetooth headset surgically attached to his skull. Pat used to be my neighbor's kid, the one who mowed my lawn for $20 and cold lemonade every summer. Now he was 35, drove a BMW, and got nervous when people said words like arbitration or liability, but he still remembered where he came from. "Mick, everything okay?" "No," I said, watching some college kid through the coffee shop window, probably interning somewhere, learning that hard work and loyalty actually meant something, but it's about to be. "You remember that lease we drew up back in '02? A pause. Then a low whistle that told me he remembered exactly what I was talking about. "Oh, that lease." "Yep. Question for you. Do they know?" Another pause. Longer this time. "Know what?" I smiled for the first time that day. Not a warm smile, not a friendly smile, the kind of smile a poker player wears when he realizes he's been holding a royal flush all along. Know that they just fired their landlord. My house smelled like WD-40 and old Clint Eastwood movies, my way of staying sane in a world that had gone soft. I dropped my bag by the door, kicked off my boots, and walked straight to the garage where I kept the things that mattered. Not in some fancy filing cabinet or cloud storage account. In my father's Craftsman toolbox, red metal, dented to hell, 1952. Top drawer under the socket wrenches he'd organized with military precision. The lease. I spread it out on my workbench like a general planning a campaign. 21 years old, coffee-stained, held together with spite and staples. Original lease agreement. 7 amendments. Even a crayon drawing from Randy Foster's daughter back when the office was one room above that Thai place and smelled like pad Thai and desperation. Page 12. Section 9B. The clause that was about to change everything. Renewal of lease term shall require written notice from lessee no later than 30 days prior to expiration date. I checked the expiration date with my finger like I was reading Braille. August 1st, 2023. Today was July 15th. They had exactly 16 days to submit renewal paperwork, but here's the beautiful part. They didn't even know they needed to. I sat back in my garage chair, the one with the spring that poked through the vinyl and the beer holder that had seen more Coors than a Denver Broncos tailgate. A smile crawled across my face, the kind you wear when you realize the universe just handed you a winning lottery ticket with your ex-wife's name on it. They'd just fired the leaseholder, the guy who'd handled every renewal since 2002, the only person who knew that the lease had never been transferred to the company name because Randy Foster had been too busy chasing venture capital to handle paperwork. I picked up my phone and started checking the score. Insurance policy? Still in my name. Michael O'Brien, DBA O'Brien Building Services. HVAC service contract? Renewed last March under my direct email because I was the only one who understood why their system needed quarterly maintenance. Cleaning service? They only showed up because I Venmo'd Maria $800 every month out of my own pocket, then submitted the receipt for reimbursement. Utilities? That was the crown jewel. Routed through a business account I'd opened with the city back in 2005 when our power used to cut out every time someone microwaved popcorn and ran the industrial printer simultaneously. City knew me by name. I'd been Michael O'Brien, facilities manager, on every electrical permit and inspection report for 18 years. Everything that kept this building breathing ran through me. I wasn't just the chief building engineer, I was the invisible infrastructure, and they'd just asked me to leave. My phone rang. Danny, my 19-year-old son, home from college for summer break, probably calling from his dorm where he was busy learning that hard work and loyalty were old-fashioned concepts. "Dad, you sound weird. Everything okay?" Define okay. Did something happen at work? I looked at that lease spread out on my workbench, at my father's tools organized exactly the way he'd taught me, at 21 years of documentation that proved I wasn't just an employee, I was the foundation everything else was built on. "Yeah," I said, "something happened. But it might not be what you think." "What do you mean?" "Sometimes, son, when people think they're throwing you away, they're really just handing you the keys to the kingdom. They just don't know it yet." Silence on the other end. Danny was smart, studying business at State, always telling me I was too trusting, too loyal to people who didn't deserve it. Kid had been right more often than I wanted to admit. Dad, what are you talking about? Nothing you need to worry about. Just remember what I taught you about reading contracts. All of them. Every clause. Every addendum. Because the important stuff is always in the fine print. Okay, now you're scaring me. I'm not scared anymore, son. For the first time in 21 years, I'm not scared of anything. I hung up and walked back to my workbench. Pulled out a Coors from the mini fridge I'd rescued from the office renovation in 2018. Opened it with my keychain bottle opener, the one shaped like a pipe wrench that Danny had given me for Father's Day when he was 12. July 31st would come and go. No renewal notice would be submitted because nobody remembered it needed to be submitted. August 1st, the lease would automatically convert to month-to-month tenancy under Section 9B, subsection 3, which meant either party could terminate with 30 days written notice. I could have warned them. Could have sent an email with a subject line like, "Hey, you forgot something important." That's what the old Mick would have done. The Mick who believed showing up and doing it right would be enough. The Mick who thought loyalty was a two-way street instead of a one-way ticket to being taken for granted. But that Mick got handed a severance package with his name spelled wrong after 21 years of keeping their dreams from collapsing. So I closed the lease folder, finished my beer, and decided for the first time in 2 decades to shut up and let them walk off the cliff they'd built for themselves. The next morning, I put on my good boots, the ones that made a solid sound on marble floors, and drove downtown to see Thomas Weber, the property manager. Time to have a conversation about the future of 425 Commerce Street. Time to remind some people that foundations matter. And when you remove the foundation, everything built on top of it comes crashing down. I had 16 days to watch them realize they'd made the biggest mistake of their corporate lives. Thomas Weber's office on the 4th floor of the Commerce Building smelled like fresh printer toner and broken dreams. He looked up from his computer when I walked in, all 17 highlighters on his desk arranged like a rainbow of bureaucratic efficiency. "Mick," he said, genuinely surprised. "Didn't expect to see you today." I smiled the kind of smile a mechanic wears when he tells you your transmission just died. "Just here to clarify some things about the lease, Thomas." I pulled out my folder, not some fancy legal portfolio, but a manila envelope held together with masking tape and 21 years of meticulous record-keeping. Original lease. All 7 amendments. Everything pristine except for one coffee stain from 2009 that looked like Texas. "I want to confirm something," I said, settling into the chair across from his desk. There was no written renewal request submitted for 425 Commerce, Suite 201-2221. Correct? Thomas clicked through his computer like it owed him money. No. Not from TechFlow. Nothing logged in our system. I assumed they were planning to go month to month while they worked out terms for a longer lease. I nodded slowly. Under Clause 9B, failure to provide written renewal notice converts the tenancy to month automatically, which means either party can terminate with 30 days written notice. Thomas leaned back in his chair. It creaked like old bones. Technically, yes. Are they planning to move? I pulled another paper from my envelope. Thick stock, official letterhead that Pat Murphy had drafted with all the legal language that made lawyers feel important. "I'd like to formally notify you of lease termination, effective 30 days from today." His eyebrows shot up like they were spring-loaded. "Wait, you're terminating it?" "Yup. As the lessee of record for the past 21 years. But TechFlow has been paying rent. To me. Then I pay you. Always worked that way. Check your records." Thomas stared at his computer screen like it might start speaking Chinese. This is going to create complications. "For them," I said, standing up, "I've already lined up a replacement tenant. Bloom Haven Wellness. They're paying triple the current rate and moving in September 1st. That part was true. Morgan Callahan had been waiting for my call ever since I'd mentioned the space at a farmer's market last summer. Young entrepreneur, loaded with investor money, desperate for downtown space to install meditation pods and air purification systems that probably cost more than my annual salary. Triple? Thomas looked like someone had just told him Christmas was canceled. Prime downtown real estate, Thomas. 12,000 square feet, newly renovated, fully wired for tech infrastructure. They know what it's worth. I walked out before he could ask any more questions that might make him think too hard about the situation. August 1st came and went like a whisper. No renewal notice, no phone calls to Thomas, no panicked emails about lease terms. TechFlow was too busy planning their IPO roadshow and arguing about whether their new logo should be Innovation Blue or Disruption Teal to notice they'd forgotten to renew the lease on the building that housed their entire operation. August 15th, I filed the official eviction notice through the county portal. Paid extra for expedited processing because some things are worth doing right. The confirmation email hit my inbox with the most satisfying ding I'd heard in 21 years. August 16th, Pat called with an update on the wellness company's financing. They'd wire the first 2 months' rent by end of week. Security deposit was already in escrow. August 18th, the certified letter landed at TechFlow's reception desk at 9:15 a.m. Same desk where I used to pick up my mail, back when they remembered I existed. And that brings us back to where we started. Tuesday morning, August 19th, 8:15 a.m. Me standing in the hallway watching Brady Stevens try to peel that beautiful orange eviction notice off Rich Ashford's door while his world collapsed around him like a house of cards in a tornado. Rich showed up at 8:30, Bluetooth headset in one ear, probably thinking he was walking into another crushing it kind of morning. Instead, he found half his staff gawking at a legal document zip-tied to his door like a neon warning sign. He yanked it off, read it, blinked, read it again. "What the hell is this?" Brady's voice cracked like a teenager asking someone to prom. "It's an eviction notice. 30 days. From..." He checked the document. "Michael O'Brien." "Mick? Our Mick?" That's when Rich called me. 7:42 p.m. Just as I was organizing socket wrenches in my dad's toolbox because a man needs order somewhere in this chaotic world. "O'Brien speaking. What the hell is going on? You can't do this." I put him on speaker, poured myself 2 fingers of whiskey, and leaned against my workbench like I was settling in for my favorite baseball game. "I absolutely can, Rich." And I did. "Maybe you should have read your lease before you fired the guy who signed it. You're evicting an entire company. Do you have any idea what this looks like? The board is losing their minds. We've got investors calling, press sniffing around. Sounds like a you problem. We can work something out. Name your price." I laughed. Actually laughed. "Rich, for 21 years my price was simple. Respect. Recognition. Maybe spell my name right on official documents. You couldn't manage that. This is extortion. This is business. Just like when you restructured me out of a job." The line went quiet except for his heavy breathing. "You've got 11 days to vacate," I said. "Bloomhaven moves in September 1st. Then I hung up. 3 months later, I was consulting for 6 downtown buildings, making double what TechFlow ever paid me, setting my own hours. Every contract I signed, I made sure my name was spelled right. Danny called that evening after the news hit the local business journal. "Dad, I saw the article. That's actually pretty impressive. Sometimes, son, standing up for yourself takes 21 years to figure out. Better late than never. I'm proud of you." That night, I hung my original TechFlow key on a small brass hook next to my dad's photo. Not as a reminder of what I lost, but as proof of what I built and what I took back. They thought I was obsolete. Turns out, competence never retires. It just finds better clients.